Bugs crashing your pack's party? Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wonderside comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed. Lab-proven to work fast. And proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wonderside's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wonderside.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wonderside.com. Wonderside. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wonderside today.
Unspoken Issues.
All right, so next up is the All-New Exiles Infinity issue. And this one, boy, I don't know. If this is correct, this is September 21st, 1995, that it hits the stands, which is a week before the Black September Infinity issue. But really, who is to complain? Because it does not feel like a lot of these issues are very interconnected anyway. This says it's on sale date, September 21st, 1995, titled The Story Into the Breach. Our writer here is Terry Cavanaugh, which a little bit of background on him. If you picked up anything by him in the 90s, it most likely might have been Mark Spector Moon Knight. As of like Web of Spider-Man issue 102, he went on a pretty long run with Web of Spider-Man. He also writes X-Man, one of my favorite titles, towards the end of the 90s, which is interesting. Yeah. Penciled by M.C. Wyman, which we already talked about him on the last couple issues or so. And then our inks are Bud LaRosa and Stephen Baskerville, Clem Robbins on letters, and Shannon Blanchard color design, and Malibu on interior color design, or interior colors. So I'm going to go ahead. I'll run down the podcast, well, the summary here, and then we'll get into our notes. Anything you got to say before we jump into the issue?
Well, you say this is coming out a week before Black September, and the one thing that makes more confusing is the Amber Hunt stuff happened in that issue.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
And this takes place after that. And Shuriken shows up here.
Right.
Poor planning, if that's accurate.
Yeah, I would assume Mike's Amazing World of Comics got it right, but sometimes you never know. But yeah, I mean, we get this, if this shipped 1 week before, all that other stuff happening, yeah, fair point. Yeah. All right, podcast summary, here we go. Across dimensions, this is a short one. Across dimensions, battles rage. Sienna Blaze and Reaper clash on a shattered oil rig, their raw power igniting the night, while Juggernaut drifts helplessly in a void until cosmic energy tears him into a new reality. Amber Hunt's torment becomes the catalyst for catastrophe. Hunted by Shuriken and Strike in a frozen wilderness, her power erupts in an agonized scream that shatters dimensional barriers. The resulting maelstrom hurls heroes and villains alike, Juggernaut, Sienna Blaze, Strike, Shuriken, Reaper, and Amber herself into a fiery wasteland. It looks more like a desert. At least that's where I think they're at first. Then they find the oasis. Amid suspicion and hostility, they march as reluctant allies, their survival tested by an ambush of mechanical dinosaur-like beasts. Together they destroy their attackers, but mistrust festers as they stagger from battlefield to battlefield, unsure if they are companions or rivals. Their uneasy truce carries them deeper into alien terrain, where moments of banter, rivalry, and revelation highlight their fragile bond. Around a fire beneath alien suns, Shuriken names them exiles of the storm, even as they sense they are pawns in something larger. That suspicion proves true when Reaper unleashes his scythe, jumps out of nowhere, putting his scythe between Sienna Blaze and Amber Hunt, which creates some kind of crazy circuit. We get a bunch of red lightning. Something happens. There's an eruption that rips the fabric of reality once more, hurling the so-called exiles into another explosion of chaos. Their fates bound together on the mysterious game world, where survival may be their only victory. So there you go. That is a synopsis of what is happening in this issue. I know that I'm going to have to do some work on figuring out who some of these characters are. We already talked about Shuriken before, but I do not remember Reaper at all. But apparently he's part of the MLF.
I remember him mostly because of a pretty impactful fight he had with Shatterstar, and either it was in New Mutants 100 or X-Force number 1.
Okay.
Where Shatterstar cuts his hand off.
Oh, wow.
I was looking at some of his stuff on Marvel Fandom, and apparently after he had his hand cut off, one of his legs was cut off by a portal closing on it. So he's got bionic limbs and stuff now. But yeah, I don't know a whole lot about him. He was a Rob Liefeld creation, I think, as part of the MLF. I think he's just kind of a badass with a cool scythe.
But not the Reaper, which is Wonder Man's brother.
Yeah.
They look completely different, so it's not going to be too hard to cut. Or if you get them confused, you better just put the comic book down. Sienna Blaze, I don't know much about her. You know much about her off the top of your head?
I just knew the name. It was somewhere in my head from being in some X-Men books back in the 90s. I looked her up, and she's also just sort of a random mutant character. I guess they just were like, hey, let's throw these two at them. Juggernaut as well. I think I also saw that she died during the House of M or one of those storylines recently.
And I mentioned Strike, which this is a Warstrike is now going by a different name.
I know that only because they give us his civilian name or whatever, but he doesn't look like his costume's not the same. He's completely different looking in this version for some reason.
Does he have like a grifter mask now?
Some kind of face mask with an open scalp where his hair kind of flows out, whereas before he just had the face paint, which he put on underneath his mask, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but whatever.
All right, so the big thing here is Juggernaut. Right. Juggernaut is now showing up and hanging out with these Malibu characters, these Ultraverse characters. So, just real quick, and you might have done your homework, because I know sometimes you do a little bit of research. The Wolverine 93. So, do you remember that issue at all?
Not off the top of my head, not by just the number.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of a few sentences to kind of explain what happens in the issue, and then we'll see if you can pick out something here. I bet you I'll jog your memory and you'll know exactly one panel that happens in the issue.
Is this the first time he says, I'm the Juggernaut bit?
I don't think so. I didn't read the issue, though. That's the problem. I didn't read it all the way through, but the panel is pretty iconic. All right. So Wolverine and Cannonball, something happens with them where they're kind of like jovial, joking around. They challenge each other to a race. Like, Wolverine hops on his bike, which apparently he is done pushing up the stairs. He's now going to actually ride it. Right. But anyway, he hops on his bike and he challenges Cannonball to a race. They end up at a bar. Juggernaut shows up, and there is about a fight to ensue. Of the few panels that you can think of Wolverine and Juggernaut being in the same panel, which one kind of comes to mind? Wolverine standing on the bar with his claws popped, and Juggernaut standing there.
I know.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're
That's
talking
that
about,
issue. Yeah. So what ends up happening, and it's very quick, Juggernaut walks outside of the bar into an alley, and there's these two people there. I have no idea who they are. If I would have read the issue, I would have understood it better. They look at the Juggernaut, and they're like, yeah, that's the Juggernaut, and we're removing him from the table. And they push a button, and they send him into essentially like dimensional limbo. So I don't know who the two people were. At the very end, the X-Men come out of the bar. They're in the alleyway. Those two people that sent Juggernaut off are there, but they're invisible. I was almost like, well, how come they couldn't see him? Then I started to realize like you could see some of the background through them. So they're invisible. Whatever they did, they sent Juggernaut off into dimensional limbo. My guess is he's like floating around out in space, has no idea what in the world's going on. The Nemesis event happens, the wave hits, and it throws him into this new world. And of course, the other people are along with him. So that's where we're at to explain where Juggernaut comes from. I'm just going to go down through my notes. I put, here's Warstrike again, which we kind of already talked about. Now he's known as Strike. This is the one where I sent you, like, this is a confusing world, because Amber Hunt is upset. She's screaming. She caused some kind of thing to happen. My guess is the Nemesis wave, because you see the blocks again. Then, you know, as to what occurs when Reaper touches the two, I don't know. You might have a better idea as to what in the world happened. I have no idea. They don't explain it in the issue. You just know something bad happens when he uses his scythe to like have them both touch, and then something bad happens. My other note here is we got robot dinosaurs, baby, on Game World. Which Game World, I'm immediately going, it's arcade, and I'm like, wait a second, I might be a little off there. I think it was something different. I can't remember. They're on Game World, and that's kind of all I got here. What are your notes on this thing?
I don't have a ton of notes.
This one, it's kind of like, hey, all these people are getting together, they're walking around, and they're trying to figure out what the hell's going on while I'm doing the same thing, and then, then it's like, okay, Reaper is a jerk.
I'm excited to get into these All-New Exiles issues because I haven't read a lot of them, or at least not that I can remember. One character that shows up later is Hellblade, which is the Ultraverse version of Warblade and Ripclaw. He's a guy that has those kind of hand things. But yeah, this is like, seems to be like the Marvel is like, hey, we'll give you guys some mutants. Like, that'll help your status. We'll throw you Juggernaut and a couple of lamos that nobody really cares about.
Right.
This is the first time Juggernaut is playing at being a hero, I think. He's been kind of back and forth over the years, and now he's back on the good side. He's an X-Man in that book. And I kind of like, Juggernaut is a character that I've always kind of liked, but I like him more as a villain. But there have been some good stories with him as one of the X-Men. He was one in like the early 2000s, and he had like this kinship with a younger mutant. I forget who that character was. That was part of the run that everybody hates. There's a writer that nobody likes that did a run on the early, like, I think while Grant Morrison was doing his run, Chuck
Austin. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so we're getting the first look kind of as Jugs as a hero. And, I was thinking, when I was reading this, like, oh, yeah, this is them really, because I knew the All-New Exiles as the book with Hellblade, Amber Hunt, and Juggernaut. I didn't really think about it having other mutants in it, even though Reaper was. I never put it together that was the same character. And even in one of these editorial things talking about the Marvel takeover or whatever, that they spotlight like, hey, we've got an X book now. Like it's, this is a big deal.
Right.
I guess it was probably one of the bigger sellers of these early Ultra Force Marvel books because it held on the longest along with Ultra Force. And
I'm seeing a lot of advertising for this. Like, and I think a lot of it was in those, like, oh my goodness, the book or the ads for different, the comic shops. Like, you could, get a collection, or you could, buy single issues or whatever. And I remember seeing down there, All-New Exiles and Juggernauts coming at you. And that, I can remember that advertisement for sure. Some of these Infinity books, I didn't even know existed. Like, Siren, I had no idea. I knew who Mantra was, but I don't remember ever seeing anything about Siren. But I do know All-New Exiles for sure.
Yeah. And I'm wondering how much Warstrike is, or Strike as he's called now, is going to be involved in this, because I do kind of like that character, and I think it's cool they kept him around in the Marvel era, but I don't know if he sticks around as part of the book or not. This is supposed to be the jumping on point, and it's confusing for the characters in the book and for the reader. Like, you don't really know what's going on. They don't explain much. They do kind of set things up with these tradesmen guys showing up, so they're going to be part of the conflict to come or whatever.
Yeah, we'll see what they could do. And again, Terry Cavanaugh might be a reason why we saw so much advertising. Marvel had a lot of faith in him. He was doing one with Spider-Man. They were familiar with his writing and confident in him getting this stuff off the ground. All right, any other notes before we pick a panel?
I think that's it.
All right. Dino Collision is what I'm going with. There's a panel where Juggernaut is swinging one into another, if I remember correctly. I didn't realize how strong Juggernaut was. Granted, I know he is the Juggernaut, but I didn't realize the super strength he had, where he just picks this thing up and slams this dinosaur into another one, and they explode.
Juggernaut is pretty, like, he's had fights going toe-to-toe with the Hulk, but, like, he's in that upper tier. Like, Colossus doesn't have much for Juggernaut, basically. Gotcha. It's what, like, Colossus is kind of just below that, the Thing, Hulk, Juggernaut tier, but Juggernaut's up there with the big boys as far as his power level. It
Definitely.
seems like.
All right, what you got?
There's the page before that, page 17, panel 3, the first time we see the robotic skull of these dinosaurs with the flesh is melted off, and we see what they're really all about.
Yeah. You can't go wrong with a cybernetic dinosaur skeleton. Just ain't going to go wrong with that.
Looks a little bit like Truckosaurus. From
Yeah, he does. Sunday. It is Sunday, as a matter of fact.
We'll sell you the whole seat, but you're only going to need the edge.
Good stuff. Stay on the lookout for more Black September themed episodes all September long in 2025, right here on the Unspoken Issues podcast.